Mae Krier, an original Rosie the Riveter, was born in 1926 in North Dakota. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Mae, her sister, and a friend headed to Seattle, Washington, where Mae became a riveter for Boeing, making B-17s and B-29s for 92 cents an hour. She met Norm, her late husband, a sailor, on the dance floor in 1944. Norm was transferred to Pasco, Washington, and in April 1945 they married. She left Boeing to work for the Army engineers with Italian prisoners of war in Pasco at 83 cents an hour. Eventually they settled in Pennsylvania, where they raised their 2 children and where Mae still resides today. Mae joined other Rosies to get the first National Rosie the Riveter Day in 2017 and the Congressional Gold Medal for Rosie in 2020. During the pandemic, through her Facebook page, Honor Rosie, Mae, with the help of companies, groups, and individuals, made and mailed well over 6,000 red and white polka dot face masks. 5,000 went directly to her Honor Rosie followers. In 2022, her face mask and bandana were worn by Rosie the Rocketeer in the commander's seat of the Boeing Starliner, which traveled to the International Space Station and back. Mae continues to travel the world to promote Rosie the Riveter's legacy, and at 98 years, Mae still cuts her own grass. Now it's time to join Breaking Barriers with Mae Krier. Hello, Mae.
Morning, Deb. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
We're all ready for this. We have a good show today. Today we are going to be interviewing Pennsylvania's Attorney General, Michelle Henry. Michelle, you want to bring her, Brandy, bring her on? Hello.
Hi. How are you? Happy to be here.
Good
morning,
to see
Michelle.
Good morning, Mae. It's great to be with you.
Well, you too. It was such an honor meeting you down with the Philadelphia police at that affair. It was such a nice honor meeting you. And I wish we'd had more time to talk. You're an amazing woman.
Well, right back at you. It was my honor to meet you at that event, and I really enjoyed chatting with you. You are definitely a true trailblazer.
Thank you, Michelle. We're so anxious to hear your story. It's a fantastic story.
Well, thank you.
Yes, it is. So let's start with what did you study in school that prepared you? There you are, the two of you. Happy Christmas party, huh?
Yes. That's us. We're having a good time.
That's great. Thanks, Brandy. So what did you study in school that prepared you for your legal career?
Well, actually, my desire to go into the law and to be a prosecutor started when I was pretty young. I was in high school, actually, and I took a course on public speaking and giving speeches, and I really enjoyed that. And from there, in college, my major was communication arts with an emphasis in public speaking. And then in law school, I really focused on a lot of criminal law because I wanted to be a prosecutor. So for a long time, I really worked hard to build up my skills so that I could be able to communicate with a judge and a jury in a courtroom.
Who were some of the women who inspired you growing up?
Well, I have to say, the woman that I most admire and really inspired me is my own mother. My mother taught me the value of hard work. She worked full time. She primarily supported my brother and I, and she had to balance a lot of different things while we were growing up. She was a full-time school teacher, and while she was raising me and my brother, she got her master's, and she just really taught me what it means to put the hard work in, to roll up your sleeves. And even to this day, my mom is 84 years old, and she is still the hardest working woman I know. So I think from the get-go, she was the true inspiration in my childhood and throughout my life.
That's awesome. Are there women who you consider to be mentors to you?
Oh, absolutely. I've really been fortunate to have women mentors throughout my career, women that I admired for their strength and for really breaking down the barriers. And quite frankly, Miss May is one of them. I mean, I think about women that really took a path that had not been taken by other women, women that said we can do this and showed what it means to be strong, and to conquer sort of all those barriers that are put out there and do the job. And so to me, those are my mentors, those women that came first, those women that were trailblazers. And I really believe that, I know Miss May does too, that it's so important that we talk about that history, that we talk about all the effort that it took to get to where we are. People like Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and that paved the way for all of us and made it, quite frankly, easier. So I'm grateful to have the mentors that I've had.
Well, I didn't realize this, but you were the first female, first deputy attorney general. So, what was that like when Attorney General Shapiro, who's now our governor, how did that feel when you were asked to do that?
Well, I have to say it came out of the blue. I was incredibly honored. At the time, I was working as a prosecutor in Bucks County, where I'd been for quite some time, and doing a lot of child abuse and sexual assault cases that were incredibly gratifying to me. And really, at that time, wasn't thinking I would move jobs. And then I got this amazing opportunity. Governor Shapiro reached out to me, and obviously he had been elected attorney general, and he asked me to be his first deputy, which was such an honor. And I thought a lot about it because honestly, it required some personal sacrifices on my part. I had to move from where I was now, coming to Harrisburg. But I thought to myself, this is an opportunity where you just can't say no. In addition to the wonderful opportunities professionally it presented me, I also thought I owed it to other women to be that person that, for all the women out there, maybe the females that are in law school that are thinking about what they could do, to be able to see somebody that had that position, I think is such an inspiration to women. And that's something really important that we can do.
So, a part of why we do this podcast is to encourage young women to keep going. Even if you're on one path and it doesn't work out, continue to go. And maybe the other path is the one to take. So, did you have any significant barriers when you were starting?
Yes, I think, one of the things, and you're right. I mean, I applaud you, first of all, for doing this podcast. And I think, when you think about strength and you think about courage and bravery, um, what Miss May has done is incredible, because talk about really having to push through all those things to do the incredible work that you did at the time, that really, quite frankly, when we look back at history, probably changed the course of the outcome. It's so critical. And so for me, it was number one, seeing women in positions that I thought, were important. So if you surround yourself and you look around and it's all men, that makes it difficult. That's a barrier in and of itself. And then as a prosecutor, going into the courtroom and having to be a strong advocate, having to be the voice for victims, having to be put forth arguments in front of a jury, I found that was sometimes difficult because you want the jury to see it your way, you want them to side with you, and at the same time, I think women sometimes in the courtroom have to be careful that they're not judged as being too aggressive or too argumentative or too pushy. And, I think that's something that men didn't have to grapple with or think twice about. So, I really believe that figuring out a way to navigate that effectively, it was something that I was an added layer, let's say, that my colleagues that were male prosecutors, I don't think had to give a second thought about.
Michelle, may I interject something in here? I loved what you had to say about your mother and her strength and her work ethics. My mother was the same way. She didn't get the right to vote till a decade that I was born in. I said, that's unbelievable. At that time, they didn't, it was a man's world. They didn't know how capable American women were. And they were the power behind the thorn. I think I always admire the mothers who encourage their daughters to go for what it is that, their ideals, their plans. And so hats off to your mom.
Well, thank you. I couldn't agree more. You're right. The mothers are the ones, the strong women that really support all of us, that made us be able to be successful. And it's funny you bring up again the right to vote. When I was in college, that was my focus. We had to do a college thesis, and it was on Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and how they pushed hard to get us. When you think about it, it's incredible, but to get us just the right to vote, for our voices to be heard. What a struggle that was.
It's amazing, isn't it, how long that took? I'm stunned when I think about it. That's why some of the laws in Washington today, I'm scared they're working backwards. They're going to try to take the women's vote away if we aren't careful. And strong women, Michelle, like you, always got to help us see that that doesn't happen.
Yes, on my watch, that will never happen. But I hear you. I mean, we have to be vigilant on all fronts. And again, you're right. When we think back, it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have that privilege.
And Mae does, she does a lot of Zooms with classes, and I'm usually on them as well. And there are quite a few young women who want to be attorneys. So if you were to talk to, how would you encourage these young women not to give up and to keep going? Because it's not easy, right?
Well, it's not easy, but I would encourage them absolutely to do it. I have found, practicing law and, quite frankly, the area of public service to be incredibly gratifying. And so I'm a big believer in love what you do. And if you love what you do, it's not work. And so I found the area of law, as I said, very rewarding to me. And look, it takes hard work, but anything that is worth it takes hard work. So these women who are thinking about going to law school, I would say absolutely go for it. I think having that law degree and that law background opens so many doors. Even if maybe your choice isn't to go into the courtroom, it can always be beneficial. And, really, if you roll up your sleeves, I have found that you can conquer anything with hard work and preparation.
And Mae's an example of that.
For sure.
Michelle, one of the examples I use, and when we were young, there wasn't even imagined that a woman would become a police officer or a policewoman. That was not ordinary altogether. And when Danielle Outlaw became the commissioner of police in Philadelphia, I thought that was so outstanding. She has a wonderful record, but she had to struggle with equality and what have you. And my feeling of the whole thing is here she was, a commissioner of police in this largest city of our country. And not only that, she was a lady of color. And what a giant step that was for equality. Now I think she's moved on. I don't know too much about her history other than the fact that she wasn't a token woman. She earned everything that she got. She was quite an educated, smart woman.
Well, yes.
That's just an example of what I think is so wrong in our country. I mean, it doesn't matter what what you achieve. Like I never did like the token program. I know it was necessary at the time, but a woman has to work so much harder than a man. Just
We're a little frozen.
I'm here.
There we go.
Okay.
All righty. So what's the best leadership advice that you could give a young woman?
Well, what I have found, and when I was being, when Governor Shapiro asked me to take over and finish out his term as Attorney General, I was, of course, honored, and we talked a lot about it because I had been by his side as his first deputy. And, some of the advice that he gave me and that I learned from him is really, you still, at the end of the day, you have to be yourself. If you try to be somebody else, it usually doesn't come through. I think it's
No.
so important to be genuine to you and yourself. And when people see that, when your team sees you in that light, I think it can really cause them to realize, number one, that they can be themselves. I remember when I was starting out as a young assistant district attorney and I started to try cases, I used to go down to the courtroom and I would watch my colleagues, individuals that I really admired, and I thought they were great trial attorneys. And there was one particular gentleman that I watched, and he was very good in the courtroom and he was very aggressive. And I thought, I want to be him. And it took me a little while to realize I could never be him because that's not me. That's just, you have to be yourself. You can take little bits of things, but you have to, at the end of the day, be genuine to yourself. And I think if you do that, that really comes through. And of course, recognizing all individuals' hard work. So, the whole team, every person in this office has a piece of what we do. And it's important to recognize that and applaud that.
I agree with you, Michelle. I couldn't be different from what I am. I know I've made a lot of mistakes. When I began this 40 or 50 years ago, I had no idea where I was going with it. I just knew that American women should be recognized for what we did to save our country. The men got all the credit. They just didn't give the women any credit at all. Had it not been for us, we couldn't have won the war. The women built all that ammunition, all that equipment. I experienced that just recently when I was in Normandy. Everything was about the beaches and the men. They didn't realize in the background we made all those planes. Us women made all those ships. We made all that ammunition. I finally spoke up, and the next day they talked about it. But that's like locking the door after the barn door after the horses are stolen. Why do they hesitate to give women credit where credit's due?
I couldn't agree more. And I remember you saying, and I thought a lot about it, that men came home to fancy parades, but women in the factories got a pink slip. And,
Right.
you're right. And that piece of it, that what all of you did, and the courage and the bravery and the hard work that you put forth, for that not to be recognized, we just, that is, to me, that is missing such a critical piece of it, because there was so much more to that than just the work that the men did. So I applaud your efforts, and I think we have to be careful as we go forward that we're recognizing that and we're doing it all the time.
One the nice thing is I've met so many wonderful women in Washington when I was working to get the gold medal. And it's amazing how they work so hard. But they have to work twice as hard, it seems to me, like than the men do. And I just don't think that's fair. I think we need more women in Washington. Women are strong. They're smart. They're everything that a man is. So why do they tend to not want? Well, it's because they want to be in control. And that's not the case anymore. Women are smart and aggressive. We're going to get there. We're going to straighten Washington out.
Well, I agree with you. Almost my entire leadership team is women. And it isn't because I sought out to pick women out. I picked the most qualified, the smartest, the individuals that I thought were the best. And lo and behold, they happen to be women. And so I agree with everything you're saying.
I want to encourage more girls to study political science and think about that. I think being a politician is a very difficult thing because they get abuse from all angles. And like I said, it's much harder for a woman. But if they don't try, they'll never know. And they have to be strong, like you, Michelle. You have to be strong because you get it from all sides, I think. And, Shapiro, I think he's such a good governor. Of course, I'm not pleased because I just got a letter that I'm getting more rebate on my taxes. That's a hard thing to do. I do admire him, and I just think it's wonderful the way he's stood behind you and helped you. I think that's marvelous. And I love to see when men take up. He's not intimidated like so many men are. And I think that's wonderful.
I do too. And you're absolutely right. I'm grateful for his support.
Now, did you always want to be an attorney? Or when you were younger, were there other things you were interested in?
No, the truth is, I really, at a very young age, wanted to be an attorney. I just came to that realization, and I was so grateful because I worked really hard to get to the position that I was able to obtain. And when you want something for a long, long time, there's always a concern you finally get it. It's not going to be all that you thought it was. Well, that wasn't the case for me. I was so grateful that it was really super fulfilling to me. I enjoyed the work that I was doing, and it started very early in my life that I had my sights set on being an attorney and being a prosecutor.
Michelle, I'm sorry, Deb. Michelle, when you're speaking about that, the day I was on C-SPAN when Senator Casey finally got our congressional gold medal passed in the Senate, and he called me and he said, "Well, how do you feel now, Mae, that you've gotten a gold medal?" He said, "After all the years you worked." And I said, I related about the medal. It's outstanding. I'm so proud. But that journey, getting there, was absolutely fantastic. People don't realize that the journey is just as important as the end result.
I agree. You're right.
And Mae, this is the first time I've said this on a podcast, but how did it feel to you when you finally achieved the gold medal and you stood in front of all the Rosies?
Oh, that was such an honor. When they asked me to symbolically accept the medal, I was just so honored. I thought that's nice because I represent millions of women. And I stood up there and I was nervous. Naturally, I was nervous because I'm working overhead, I think. But what a nice honor that was. That'll remain with me forever. I mean, because you work so hard, when you see the end results, you're stunned.
What a tremendous honor. I mean, that is incredible and well deserved. I was so gratified to hear that, and the recognition that's so important and really should come to you and other Rosies who did such incredible work.
Well, we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us today. Mae, do you have anything else you want to ask?
No, only that I'm just so proud of you, Michelle. You represent everything that us women from World War II, when we opened the doors, we opened the doors, but you're the ones who are doing it. And like I said, we're just so proud of what you women are doing. And we just want you to continue. And you're such a wonderful example of what women can do, what they can achieve. Like I said over and over, I'm just very proud of you, Michelle, and keep going. Maybe you'll be our next president.
Well, thank you so much. It was such an honor to be with you. And, because of women like you, I'm able to be where I am. And so hats off to you. And the courage, I can't even imagine being a teenager and doing the work that you were doing, building this ammunition and the efforts that you all put forth. You are the true heroes and the women that I look up to. So I can't tell you how excited I was to be here to chat with you and to meet you. And so thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I, of course, wish you well. You're amazing. I'm going to be watching you and what you do next.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. And hold on. We're going to say goodbye to you and hold on until we finish the recording. That was great, Mae. I learned a lot.
Wasn't that nice? That was so interesting, Michelle's story. I wish more women now would listen and take heed.
And you know what? Because you asked me to get in touch with the Attorney General, and I filled out the form on their website, and boom, we actually got a response. I didn't expect it. So it's all good. It's all good.
Isn't that amazing? I just love to listen to women talk like her. I knew she impressed me the day we were down that Philadelphia police affair in December. I just knew she had a lot on the ball. She's going to go places. I laugh, I kid about being the next president, but who knows? You just
Who
don't know.
knows? Who knows? All right, Mae, I guess it's time to power up.
All right,
And
Deb.
we can
Ready?
do it. We can do
That's
it. Thank you. Be kind, everybody.